The icy wind swept across the wide-open farmland as Sarah Miller tightened her shawl around her shoulders, balancing her 6-month-old baby in one arm while carrying a sack of feed in the other. Her boots crunched against the frozen soil, each step heavier than the last. It had been a long morning, feeding the chickens, checking the fences, and making sure the barn was secured before the storm hit. Life as a single mother on a farm wasn't easy, but Sarah was tougher than most realized. What the locals didn't know was that behind those tired eyes and mud-stained boots stood one of the most powerful women in the state attorney, a woman who had taken down drug cartels, exposed corruption, and fought for justice in courtrooms packed with cameras and politicians. But here, in this small rural town where she had chosen to raise her baby after her husband's sudden death, she was just seen as the struggling farm mom. And to a group of bullies, she seemed like the perfect target. It started small. A group of rough local boys, teenagers who had too much time and too little guidance, began mocking her when she came into town. "Hey farm lady, need help with that baby? Looks like even the cows are better off than you." They'd laugh, spit on the ground, and make crude jokes. At first, Sarah ignored them. She had thicker skin than most. Years in the courtroom had taught her the value of silence in the face of ignorance. But soon, their taunts turned into harassment. One afternoon, as Sarah was loading feed into her truck with her baby strapped to her chest, she turned to find one of the boys letting the air out of her tires. Another tipped over her sack of grain, spilling it across the dirt. They smirked, thinking she was too weak, too helpless to fight back. Sarah's jaw tightened. Inside, the attorney in her wanted to snap, to unleash the full weight of the law on these boys. But another part of her, the grieving widow, the exhausted mother, just wanted peace. She chose silence again, hoping they'd get bored. But they didn't. A week later, Sarah stopped by the small-town grocery store. The aisles were narrow, lined with canned goods and flour sacks. As she picked up formula for her baby, she heard the laughter again. "Look at her, probably can't even afford that without food stamps." One of them deliberately bumped into her cart, sending it spinning. Her baby whimpered. That was the moment Sarah's patience snapped. She stood tall, locking her piercing eyes on the ringleader. "Son," she said, her voice low but sharp as a blade, "you don't know who you're dealing with." The boy laughed in her face. "What are you gonna do? Cry? Call your cows for backup?" Sarah didn't answer. She calmly finished her shopping, ignoring the burning stairs, and drove home. But that night, after tucking her baby into bed, she sat at her kitchen table, opened her laptop, and began pulling files. Names, records, histories. She was no longer just a farm mom. She was the state attorney, and now, she had decided it was time to act. The next morning, the bullies returned, this time blocking her driveway with their pickup trucks, music blaring, yelling insults. Sarah didn't flinch. She walked out, her baby on her hip, and stood in the cold morning sun. With one hand, she held up her badge, gleaming in the light. Silence fell. "You think I'm just some farm widow you can push around?" she said, her voice steady. "I am the state attorney. Every crime you commit against me, harassment, vandalism, intimidation, goes on record. And believe me, I know exactly how to make it stick." The boys shifted nervously. One of them muttered, "She's bluffing." Sarah stepped closer, her eyes locked on theirs. "Try me. I've put men twice your age behind bars for less." The bravado drained from their faces. For the first time, they realized the woman they'd been mocking had the power to turn their lives upside down. But Sarah didn't stop there. Instead of throwing them directly into the system, she chose a different path. She called their parents, arranged meetings, and offered them a choice: face criminal charges, or work on her farm under supervision, learning respect and responsibility. At first, they hated it. Early mornings, mucking stalls, hauling water, repairing fences. But as weeks passed, something shifted. They saw how hard Sarah worked, balancing every chore with caring for her baby. They watched her rise before dawn, work until her back ached, and still find the strength to smile at her child. Slowly, the sneers turned into quiet respect. One boy, the ringleader, even asked one evening as he hammered boards onto the barn wall, "Why didn't you just throw us in jail?" Sarah paused, wiping sweat from her brow. "Because I know what jail does. It breaks people. But I also know what responsibility does, it builds people. And I'd rather see you grow than waste your life behind bars." By spring, the farm looked better than ever. The fences stood strong, the barn roof repaired, the fields ready for planting. And the boys, they weren't bullies anymore. They had learned discipline, humility, and even a sense of pride in honest work. When Sarah walked into town now, no one mocked her. The same boys who once sneered now nodded respectfully, sometimes even carrying her groceries. Word spread quickly about the single farm mom who wasn't just a mom, but the state attorney who chose mercy over punishment, strength over silence. And when people asked why she didn't crush those boys with the full power of her title, Sarah would simply smile and say, "Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about giving people the chance to change." Her story became an unshakable reminder to the town, and to anyone who heard it, that courage doesn't always roar in the courtroom. Sometimes, it walks quietly across a farm field, with a baby on its hip and justice in its heart.